Hi guys, it's Imran back again from Options Insight with your crypto vol update. See what's been going on in crypto markets and crypto options. So, if I jump into our report, remember nothing we do at Options Insight is financial advice. Everything is purely for educational purposes. And on that note, let's see what's been going on. So Bitcoin has rebounded as the macro backdrop has kind of been shifting, becoming all about a weaker dollar, the end of US exceptionalism, money flowing out of US bond markets, US stock markets, and into things like gold that are deemed a safe haven. And Bitcoin seems to have kind of started to react a bit more like gold and a bit less like a high beta risk asset as it has been through many times in its kind of life. If we look at the chart, kind of tells a clear picture. We had this downtrend resistance. If we draw a line through all the kind of lower highs that Bitcoin was making since it topped out earlier in the year, we've finally broken above that downtrend and we've taken out this kind of horizontal resistance level at around 88.5, 89K. We're sitting just shy of 91K right now. This strong green bar that we've got today does kind of open up the way for mid-90s and beyond. So it is looking quite bullish, I would say, that chart right now on a technical basis. The decoupling from risk assets is also very, very positive as well, because if risk assets are still weak and Bitcoin ignores it and doesn't care, that's quite optimistic, right? And you could definitely see that kind of helping drive that narrative that, okay, it's being deemed as a bit of a safe haven, you know, whatever it is, currency, dollar protection against the system kind of collapsing, those sort of things, right? That people are starting to get fearful of. So I do think a visit back to 100K is looking more on the cards now. And we're also back above the 200-day moving average, which is always a good sign as well. Now, looking at the chart over at Ethereum, the 200-day moving average is miles away at like 2,800. So that's very far. And Ethereum really not showing you the same kind of bullish picture here, I would say. The spread between Bitcoin and Ethereum continues to be in a downtrend. Key resistances for Ether about 1,800 and then 2,100 behind that. So still hasn't breached above 1,800. And it's kind of going up in sympathy with Bitcoin, but certainly not leading by any stretch. We're still waiting for an ETH-specific narrative really to get ETH going. And that seems pretty absent right now. So for now, it seems you want to own Bitcoin against anything else pretty much. Everything else is still very firmly in a bear market, whether it's mining stocks, whether it's altcoins. That just seems to be the world we're in right now. Bitcoin has got a little bit of that safe haven narrative that, you know, in sympathy with what gold is doing and that story there, that de-dollarization story. But outside of that, nothing in crypto really has it. And for now, we haven't really seen anything on the deregulation side. We haven't seen any. All we've seen from Trump really is pissing everyone off in the global community on trade, right? So, you know, at some point, there probably will be some more positive moves that are good for the crypto industry, right, and the ecosystem. But for now, sentiment's pretty dire out there with regards to the US. All right, let's jump into the vol markets. Realized vol was cut in half this week. The large price swings that we had previous removed from the rolling window that calculates realized volatility, usually looking at about 1 week realized. So the last 1 week has been a lot more stable than previous. So BTC realized back to 35, Ethereum back to about 55. Like I said, they've pretty much been cut in half. Front end implied vols were drifting off throughout the week, but today's move higher in spot has led to a little bit of a bid, and we have popped again. So we're leaving it unched on Bitcoin in the front end and about 5 vols higher in Ethereum. Carry is back to around 10 vols positive across both assets, showing that, you know, implieds have got a little bit of a positive spread to realize now that realize has calmed down. The OHLC charts here showing us that the implied range is being respected pretty well on Bitcoin and Ethereum until the last couple of days where we started to break out to the upside on these ranges. Now, the question is this break higher going to turn into something a bit more volatile, or is it going to be quite an orderly ascent? Remains to be seen. But the technical break, the decoupling from risk assets is quite encouraging, does point towards more strength. And we do know that when Bitcoin decides to go, it often takes vol up with it. So you might get a bit of a spot up, vol up dynamic taking hold if we can stay above 90K and start to motor up towards 100K again. Okay, so that's something to look out for. Looking at term structures, you can see the shapes here. We're in contango on Bitcoin. We're very slightly inverted on ETH if we ignore the front contract. And then time series wise, we got our usual kind of contango steepening into the weekend and then bouncing out of it on both assets there. Skew's an interesting one. It has flipped from put premium into call premium over the last week. The charts here show it even clearer. You see the term structure of Skew there very much was puts in the front, calls in the back. Ethereum was like -7 odd vols for puts in the front, calls in the back was about 3 or 4 vols there. But you've seen that those curves flattening dramatically. So Bitcoin is pretty much in call premium across the entire curve, somewhere 1 to 2 vols, depending on which maturity you're looking at. Ethereum, also similar story. The front end actually going quite bid for calls, but between sort of between 1 week and 2 month expiry, probably very slightly in put premium by about half a vol still. But then as we go longer dated, we're back in calls. So quite a big flattening. The Skew curve telling us that there is a risk. There's an upside tail risk here in crypto where it's kind of been left behind watching gold go up dramatically, and it might need a bit of a catch up move. And that's what we're maybe starting to see today, right? So, that call bid is probably traders lifting, that front end call bid is traders lifting some short dated calls in Bitcoin, especially to try and play a bit of a gold style rally if we were to get one, as the dollar has been in free fall and looks very weak right now. The back end Skew holding call premium in both assets, not really doing a lot, still very much signaling that bullish regime longer term. Liquidity taps are likely to be turned on at some point. But all the action right now has been in the front end. That's where we've seen the actual real repricing, where those long end hasn't been quite as active. Looking at relative value, ETH Bitcoin spread above 25 vols in the front still, so holding those levels. The actual spot spread has been in that heavy downtrend. It hit 0.018, which is the level not seen since 2020 in the COVID crisis. So yeah, that's really looking very bear markety, I would say, that spread. The front end at 25 is kind of in line with realized. So Ethereum is realizing at least 20 vols above Bitcoin. But as you can see, the spread does come down to around 13, 14 vols in the back end there. So pretty stable, hasn't done a whole lot on the week. Looking at Skew differentials, we do see more of a put skew in the kind of front end expiries May to June on Ethereum. It's more driven by the fact that BTC call skew has risen by more. So that bid for calls has come in the short end, but not so much in the front end for Ethereum. So, at some point, generally we tend to see calls go bid first on Bitcoin in the front end, and then if the narrative improves and we do get a bit more upside in crypto, people start looking a little bit further out in Ethereum calls. That hasn't really happened yet because this is the early stage of the break higher. If we get Bitcoin at 100k and ETH continues to rally with it and takes out 1800, you'll probably start to get some September call buying in Ethereum, something like that, but we haven't seen that just yet. I do think this 90k level is important. If Bitcoin can hold above the 90k level, then we could see some decent upward price action that takes implied vols higher with it. I think the flipping Skew is somewhat indicating that, right? The fact that all the call Skew has gone bid is basically saying that the market expects if we rally vol to be quite firm, right? Because at these levels of vol, we're still in the 50s on Bitcoin, and we know Bitcoin vol can easily go a lot higher than that if it wants to, right? If the moves in spot warrant it. All right, guys, that is your quick summary of what has been going on in crypto vol this week. Thanks for watching. Catch you next week.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. Remember, this is just a little taster of what we do at Options Insight. To get access to all our research, including my in-depth vol market insights and a whole lot more, you can sign up at options-insight.com. I'll see you soon.